Hi everyone, so welcome to the project introduction for how to create and deploy Docker applications. So my name is Elliot Minns. I've done a few videos on LiveEDU before, and in this video what we're going to be doing is basically taking a look at one of my favorite build processes or deployment tools, which is Docker. So Docker is basically, the reason I want to do this video is because it's a good starting sort of basis for understanding how to develop with Docker, and I use it a lot in my videos, so it's probably a good idea for me to do a sort of basic introduction video on how to do this. Docker is a very broad application. There's DevOps people or careers around the world sort of very focused on it. So we're not going to go into too much detail about it. We're going to give you enough though to sort of get a landing pad or launch pad, and if you're interested in learning more, this should be a good resource to get you started. So what are we going to learn in this series? So we're going to, let me get the curriculum up here. So, okay, so in session one, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a brief overview. So we're just going to talk about Docker somewhat, give you sort of my interpretation of what Docker is, go to the website and sort of show our way around and sort of show you how you can install it. In this tutorial, I'm using macOS, and then deployment, I'll be using Linux. So if you are using Windows, there are links on there. I won't be able to give you too much advice onto that one because I don't run a Windows machine. But if you follow the instructions on the website, it should help you out there. So once it's installed, we'll then test that everything's working and looking good. Then in session two, what we're going to do is we're going to start with our example project. So we're going to clone that down from GitHub, or you can download it from the LiveEDU resources. And then we'll run the project. It's going to be in Node.js, so make sure you do have Node.js installed and npm. If you don't know how to do that, there are links online to do it. We're not going to cover that in the course because we're not really focused too much on the example project. We're focused on the Docker part of it. If you have your own example project you want to run, then it's good to follow along with that as well. So what we do is we create a Docker file. I'll go into detail about how to do that, but it's basically an automated script to sort of build our containers and our images. So yeah, it's kind of gives a little overview on that. There is much more you can do with Docker files, but this is a nice basic example. And then we'll run a Docker image locally and test that and go into things about ports and how to assign ports and stuff, and sort of give a little demonstration of the power that comes with Docker. Then in session three, what we'll do is we'll start deploying on a server. So we'll install Docker on a VPS and we'll go through the install process step by step. So if you follow that along slowly, then you can sort of understand how it works. There are different guides to do that out there though, and this may change by the time you're watching this video. So if it doesn't seem to work, make sure you follow a guide online. There's plenty out there. Then we'll push to Docker Hub. So we'll explain how to do that, create a Docker Hub account and push online, so then you'll be able to see your repositories on Docker Hub and pull them down from other places. Then we'll run the container on the VPS, so we'll pull that container down that we pushed to Docker Hub and run it on there, and then set up user permissions as well, so that we can access Docker without running as root every time, and change the ports and test that that works also. Then in session four, once we've managed to get everything working remotely, we're going to add Mongoose or MongoDB to our application. So we're going to add a database. Then we'll deploy that as a MongoDB container locally and sort of go into the caveats of how that works and how to link that up with our application. And then what we'll do is we'll deploy this remotely, but we'll make sure that we persist data so that when we delete, or if the container shuts down, it gets deleted in any way, we still keep hold of our database, so that it runs everything nicely. So we'll link them together, get everything working, and basically have a little application deployed. The application won't do much, but it'll just connect to the database and return requests. So it's a really nice starting place for you to get on with your own apps. So I hope that sounds exciting. I'm pretty excited for this course. Thank you for watching the introduction video, and let's get started. Hi everyone, so welcome to the first episode in our Docker series on how to get set up and deploy Docker applications. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to talk about what Docker is, why it's useful, and get our platform set up. Now I am using macOS, so if I recommend either using Linux or macOS in this tutorial series, but I'm sure you'll be able to follow along with Windows. absolutely fine as long as you sort of understand the Windows commands and translate them from the commands I produce on macOS. So let's talk about what Docker is. So Docker is basically, on the Docker website as they describe it, build, manage, and secure your apps anywhere your way. So I'll give you my interpretation of what Docker is on that, because it kind of doesn't give too much information. But basically, Docker is, for me, a set of tools that allow containerizations of apps, so you can easily deploy apps and horizontally scale. So what does containerization mean? So it's very similar to virtualization or virtual machines, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. When you spin up a virtual machine using Vagrant or VirtualBox, you create your own little machine instance that's sort of sandboxed away from your main machine, and you can just sort of dedicate it to running a single purpose. That's kind of what Docker is, but it's much more lightweight. So rather than with a virtual machine where you have to build the whole operating system inside the machine, Docker works by having the operating system layer outside of the container, and then you build your app, which has a container on top of that. So it allows for a much lighter way. It's hence the term containerization. You basically have app containers, which kind of act like little functions, but for a full-blown application. So it's easier for you to scale them across, link them together. They can call one another, interact with one another. You can open ports for some, deny ports for others, and it's very powerful in its functionality. So that's why it also makes this, the process of deployment much more simple. So you can just create new containers, you can tag them or version them, or however you like, and you can upgrade sort of your current running application with a new container, and then do the transition before, whilst nobody even knows that it's changed. So it allows you to sort of deploy much easier. It improves your DevOps, and it's just a great tool to learn. You'll see in my videos I often refer to using it just for the deployment process, and so these videos are sort of try and give a bit more of a understanding of how that works. So now we want to install Docker. So this is all very nice and things. So we get onto the Get Started button. And you can see basically Docker for developers is what we want. It gives a little introduction here. Building and deploying new applications is faster with containers. Docker containers wrap up software and its dependencies into a standardized unit for software development that includes everything it needs to run: code, runtime, system tools, and libraries, guaranteeing that your application will always run the same and make collaboration as simple as sharing a container image. So that gives you a nice overview of some of the functionality and also some other use cases with it. So, if you're on a Mac, click the download with Mac button. If you're on Windows, click download with Windows. Because I am on a Mac, I just use brew cask install Docker, and this will install the latest image for me. As I've already got it, what I can just then do is, once it's installed, ps make sure it exists. So this is the first command we've done with Docker. You'll see on Mac, it's got the little... Oops, sorry there. For a second, my screen decided to cut out. Yep, so for a second, you'll see that it's got the little Docker daemon running here, so you can see it there. And that's it. That's basically everything we need to... Oh, I think my power cut out, actually. Good job I'm on a laptop. Sorry, yes. So... and that basically tells you that the Docker daemon is running successfully. So thanks very much for watching. On the next video, what we'll do is we'll download our trial app. It's just a very simple app. You can check the source code out on GitHub, or you can download it from LiveEDU. And we'll basically set that up and containerize it and get it running on our local machine using Docker. And we'll go into some sort of details about how that works. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hi everyone, so welcome back to our Docker series on how to set up and deploy Docker applications. So in this session, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up our first Docker image and running it as a container inside of our local environment. So we're going to be using an app that I've already pre-built. It's very simple. You can check the source code out. It's but it can be any sort of app. This is kind of just to give you an understanding of sort of how it would work. And we're going to be setting up in the context of Node.js. But it should make sense to you when you deploy, if you deploy any of your applications, how this works. Remember, Docker kind of works best on server-side or back-end applications, it's not very. It can work with front-end. Front-end tends to be a little bit trickier though, so we're not going to go into front-end too much. But back-end server-side stuff is perfect for it. So, all right, let me just close these windows down and open this back up again. So the first thing we're going to do is clone the application. So if we do a git clone, and this is the URL, we'll clone it into a directory called Docker. There we go. So if we get into Docker, we can just do tree here. We don't have tree, let's do that. I do like the tree function. It's just a nice way of showing what you've got in your directory. All right, let's have a look. So you can just see it's just an index.js and a package.json. Cool. So we open this up. This is what the index.js looks like. Pretty simple, easy to understand. Good. That's how we like it. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make a Docker file. So here, we just create a new file called Docker file. And we're also going to do something else. We're going to add a new file called .docker ignore. So this is very similar to similar to the git ignore that we've got here, but this one's called a Docker ignore. So next thing we want to do is install the dependencies using npm. And that should give us our, let's go into it. First of all, it's rns. Let's go into our Docker file. Okay, let's do this here as well. Perfect. Okay, so we'll npm I here, or shorthand for npm install. And there you go, we've also got a node modules as well. So we'll use the Docker ignore, first of all. It's always good to start with your ignoring before doing anything else. And we'll just do node modules. We don't want to send our node modules over to our Docker container instance because one, they're different operating systems, and two, it's not what we want to do. Okay, so how do we build our Docker file? So the first thing we want to do is we want to get our latest Node.js image. So let me just grab some notes up here. So the way you can do this is you can search for Node.js Docker on Google or something like that. But you want to go into hub.docker.com and it will kind of tell you what you need to do. Oh, excuse me. My allergies seem to be playing up. So what we want to do is we want to use Node.js 10, which is the latest LTS version. So first thing we do is write from, and we can just do from node with the tag being 10. So that will be from Node.js, which is the node container name, 10. So what this does is basically inherits. It's kind of like inheritance, but we're basically extending the Node.js Docker file. So using this, we're basically saying, okay, our base Docker file is Node.js, but we're going to add to it. And that's kind of what that does. Okay, so next thing we want to do is, let me just get my notes again. Okay. So we want to make a directory that we're going to work in. So we'll do run make here /user/source/app. Now, because we're using the command run, what this is actually doing is it's making it within the Docker container, not into our host machine. So this will run within the Docker container, make dir p for making all the directories above it, user/source/app. And then we want to set our work directory to do this. Okay, so we set our work directory to be the directory that we created. And we basically want to just copy everything over to there. So we copy everything in the base file. So the base file here is, if you remember, it's our index.js, package.json.lock, or package.lock.json, and package.json. So I'll copy basically all of that over into our working directory. And then we want to run our first command, which is npm install, like we would do on our normal machine. So we basically pull down our packages and install them. Now, let's just run this so we've got an idea of what to do. npm start. Okay, so if I go on to here, we do localhost 3000. Basically, this is all the server does. It produces hello world. If you see here as well, you might be able to see on this thing, we do curl localhost 3000/hello. It just returns hello. So that's all the server does. Sorry, I should have sort of mentioned that earlier. But what it does do it on is port 3000. If you look here, you can see that this is the port number we're using. So we want to, make sure that we expose that on our application. So we can do expose 3000. Now this is just for the port. If you had a port of 8080, you would do that. If you had more than one port, you would do 3000 expose 8080. So that just tells the Docker machine that this port should be exposed, and the rest of it is kept nice and securely. So it's very good for security. Okay, so how did we start this? We started this using npm start. So you would think it would be run npm start to start it. But that's not actually the case. So in Docker we have something else. We use something called command. Now, this command basically is the default command when starting this. So we do npm start, and you pass it in as an array. So rather than doing just command npm start, which you could do, it's better to do npm start like that. Now, this basically will run and start the app. Now we want to add an environment variable, so we'll do an env here, and we'll basically set node. How do we set the production? Let me just double check that. Node run as production. I always forget. Node env, that's it. So we'll do node env production, I think. Yeah. So this would also set an environment variable for us as well, which is very useful. So let me just double check that. Docker environment variables. There's a bunch of other things we can do as well, such as add other sorts of environment variables or build environment variables if we really want to do that. But we don't need to. We just add this. So let's close down the server and let's give it a go. Let's see if this works, shall we? So we'll do docker build. Docker build there, and we're just going to tag it as docker/test. Okay. So what this will now do is download all of the relevant, all the relevant sort of files that it needs in order to actually build the context. So this bit takes a little bit of time. Again, this is a very simple Docker container, but it's more about the deployment of Docker rather than giving a big overview into what Docker actually does. The cool thing about this is you can actually have a look at Docker Hub and you can see other Docker files. So it gives you a way of basically, seeing, it's sort of open source, so you can see how other people do their Docker Hub. So there's plenty of different places to look. So if you look at Node.js, you can see this is the official, we can't allow cookies. So you'll see this is all the official sort of repositories for all of that. You see who maintains it, all the different tags that are currently supported. And there's much more in the background supported as well, but you can also see the latest release, the documentation repository and things like that. So if we go onto our GitHub repository here, we should be able to see the actual Docker file, and you see these are all the different templates and stuff, so you can have a look at them. We'll have a look at the Jesse one. So you can see it's very similar to what we've got. It's a little bit more complicated because they add all these certain stuff into it. But they're setting environment variables in there. They're also setting a bunch of GPG keys and all this other stuff. But you can have a look at that and sort of get an understanding of how they do things. Yeah, so it's very cool. So it's all open source. Great way to learn is by looking at some of your favorite projects and seeing how they've done things. Okay, so we're still downloading. Takes a little bit of time. My connection's not the fastest today for some reason. Probably because I keep having power outages. There we go, it's speeding up a bit now. Let's just spread this out as well. Okay, perfect. Let's delete that. So we managed to build it. So we want to list our images. Let me just get the notes for that. We basically created a image. Let's do Docker images. And you can see there we've got two now downloaded, which is the node image and the Docker test image. You can see it was created 23 seconds ago. Tag is the latest. And so the way we tag it is basically like this. But that's okay for that repository at the moment. So let's try and run this. So if we do Docker run, Docker/test, that should just run, but we're going to just add a few more things in here. So we want to name it, so we'll just name it as hello.vu, or no, we'll name it as hello world, I think. Hello world. And then we need to expose the ports. So we've already exposed them on the machine, but we need to expose them on our local machine. Now this is something that's really cool. We could just do 3000, and that will open up on 3000 like we expected it. However, we'll do something else. We're going to do 3500, but map it to 3000 on the host machine. Now, what this does is basically on our local machine or in our host, it'll be 3500, but on the actual container, it'll be 3000. So it's really cool. So like you don't need to worry about port conflicts or anything like that by running up multiple instances. We could run up 5 of these on the same machine, but with different ports. So for like things like load balancing, really awesome, really simple to do. Let's give that a go. Okay, so it's running, and you'll see it's running in the foreground at the moment, so we will change that next time. But if we go to our machines here, we'll do localhost, we did 3500. There we go. We've got it running there, but we've remember it's running in this actual container itself. So let's close this down. Might not like that. We'll probably have to do docker stop hello world. Let's do that. There we go. And that's it. So we do docker ps. You can see we've got nothing running. We do psa. You can see we've got that. So we're just going to do docker rm hello world first of all. That removes the container and cleans things up. So let's start that run again. So we did this, but next time we're going to put the D flag or the detach flag. I just do a D for shorthand. And there you go. You can see we get a hash of the instance running, but this time we're not running in the foreground. So we can do docker ps, and we can see it there, and it's still got the same name. You have to excuse that it kind of truncates through. Open this up a little bit wider. Better. Yeah, perfect. Now, let's say we want to see what's happening within this. We can do docker logs. Hello world. And there we go. We can put the F flag just to follow along like we were before. And just to prove that it's all working. Perfect. So stop it again. You do docker.stop hello world, or the name of the container. That's the safest way to do it. And then if you go back to here, you can see it's no longer running. So that's it. That's a very, very simple overview of how to get Docker running with a local machine with a local container. So I hope that was kind of informative. Next thing we'll do on the next session is we'll talk about getting it set up on DigitalOcean or any other VPS. We use DigitalOcean, but it should be the same as anything. So I'll get one of these servers set up and we'll give it a go and we'll start to install via that. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that video and we'll catch you next time. Hi everyone, so welcome to session 3 for how to set up and deploy Docker applications. So in this series, what we're going to be doing is basically deploying to DigitalOcean, our Docker application that we created in the last or in the last session. So first of all, what we want to do is you want to sign up for hub.docker.com, get yourself a Docker account. You can see mine here is Elliot Binns, which is my name. And also, let me close that. We've also got the same thing set up for DigitalOcean as well. So let me just create a new project for this live edu Docker live edu. And the purpose is educational purposes. There we go. Perfect. We'll just skip that. There we go. So we got a fresh sort of panel for live edu Docker. So what we want to do is we'll create a droplet. But first of all, we'll talk about how to get a repository set up. So okay, first of all, you can see I've got a number under there. We'll do create a repository. So we'll do it under my name or your username in your case, and we'll just call this echo or hello world. Hello world server. Hello world server. Fine. And we'll keep it public. You might want to pay. Now they do make you pay to do this, and that's it. So if we want to pull that, that's that. But at the moment we actually want to push. So let's copy our name. Perfect. Okay, so we go to the terminal, and we're going to do the docker build command again, but this time I'm going to tag it slightly differently. We'll tag it Elliot Binns hello world, and we'll just do one for v1. So again, what we're going to do is just build the same thing. Now this will be a lot quicker than last time because we've already had everything downloaded on our local machine. So that's another benefit. It's much quicker to download. First of all, okay, so let's do Docker images. And there you go, you can see we've got our hello world here under the correct repository name, and we created 11 seconds ago. So we're going to do Docker push Binns / hello world. So now we're going to push it up. You'll see though that we have been denied in doing so. So let's do Docker login. So log in the username, and then you need your password. So let me just get my password up from LastPass here. Sorry about this. And it doesn't seem like it's there, so I'll go to my preferences and get it from a keychain instead. And of course, I've got two passwords, so let's hope this is the right one. There we go. So Docker login, you'll be able to log in with Docker, perfectly fine. Okay, so let's try that Docker push again. There we go, much better. So it pushes up everything we need. And it doesn't push up things it doesn't need. So remember, because we used everything from Node.js, it did take us a long time to download, but everything's up there. So we don't actually need to push those resources. So it's nice and quick and very efficient. And there you go, we've got our hash of our build, and it should be up there. So if we go back to Safari, reload this page, pushed a few seconds ago, and you can see we've got our first tag, which is v1.0. Perfect. So we've got everything pushed up onto Docker now. If we want to pull it again, we can do. Let's give it a go on our local machine. So basically copy that command. Let's try that again. Okay, that didn't work. So let's do docker pull Elliot Binns / hello world. Now we've already got it, so we don't need to do that. Latest doesn't exist though, you remember, so we'll do v1.0. Perfect. So let's also docker tag. Let's see what it says on the help here. Okay, so let's do docker tag Elliot Binns / hello world v1.0. We'll also tag it as latest as well, just so we've got there up there. So we'll push that tag as well, and it won't need to do anything because the layer already exists, so it will just push the actual tag. And then if we do, let's say, docker pull again, should be fine, yeah. So we've already got it, and we've already got the up-to-date latest image. Perfect. So now if we go back to DigitalOcean, we should be able to run this absolutely fine. Okay, so let's get started with a new droplet. And in fact, I think what we'll do is, I don't know how long I've been recording. No, I think we're fine. So let's start with a new droplet. Choose whatever size you want. I'm going to go for a 2 GB one just to be safe. And just do it in London. Add my SSH keys. Great, that'll do. So we'll let that spin up. Okay, so we got our things here. Let's get out of here and we'll SSH in. Just try that again, but we'll make sure we SSH in as root. Okay, perfect. Yes. So, okay, we've got our new instance. Let's just add a user. Enter your password in. Yes, this information is correct. Give that user sudo access. We're also going to give them Docker access, but not just yet. Okay. Actually, yes, give them Docker access as well. Docker doesn't exist in the group, so we can't just do that yet. And then we're just going to change the SSHD config for the moment. I'm just going to set password authentication to be yes. Okay. And then this isn't going to work because we needed to restart SSH. So let's try that again. So we're just going to copy my SSH keys over there. Use the password that we set up. Cool. So we should now be able to log in, and we'll just fix that password. Yep. So we've got sudo working, SSHD working. Let's set this to be no. Sudo service SSHD restart. Right, perfect. So now we can only log in with SSH keys, and we've got a user that's not root to do so. So let's install Docker, shall we? Now you can set up Docker using a one-click app, but we're not doing that because not everybody might be running DigitalOcean. So we want to install Docker on Linux. Now there are plenty of guides to do this. I will be using a guide. Okay, let's get started. So you want to add the official GPG keys, and we'll add the Docker repository as well. Then we want to update sudo. Now I am getting this from a guide, so you might want to look for a guide yourself, just because this may change in the future, but this is how it is currently at the time of recording this video. Okay. So let's install Docker. Perfect. So we should make sure that Docker is actually running, which it is. Perfect. Now, you'll see if we try to do Docker PS, like we did on Mac, it doesn't work. We're not allowed to. So we have to do sudo Docker PS. That's kind of encumbersome. We don't really want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add Docker to our user using that simple command there. So if we do Docker PS again, still doesn't work. So we're just going to log out, log back in again. And there we go. We have access to Docker. So the next thing we want to do is we want to run our Docker container. So let's give that a go. We'll do Docker pull, like we did before. This will be much quicker because it's on a hosted server that has a direct, probably gigabit Ethernet line, so easily to download. One of the nicer things about deploying via Docker. So we're pulling this down right now. There we go. Now you can check the hash to make sure everything is fine and that nobody's sort of replaced your binary image with anything else. And that's always important to do. Now you can see that when we pushed it up here, we got the hash of the SHA-256 hash of AAD2 D774581. And we can confirm that that is the same there. Now, if you're really paranoid, you'd confirm the whole thing, but it's very unlikely that after the first 8 digits, they're going to be able to have something that's very similar than that. So I usually check the first 8 and the last 4 just to make sure that they are correct without having to go through the whole thing. But we can see that our SHA hash is absolutely fine. Let's just enlarge that a little bit. Perfect. So we now have this running locally. So what next? Well, we want to actually have this running live on our container. As you can see, we haven't got anything running at all. So let's do docker run /hello world. Let's give it a name, of course. So name will be hello world. We'll detach it, and then we'll set the port of 80 to 3000. That's it. It's running. So let's log off here. Copy the IP address. And let's give it a go, shall we? And that's it. We've got our app running. We've got a server running live on the internet. Not bad. So that's basically it for sort of setting up Docker and going through that. There's a lot more advanced concepts we can do, so we'll touch on them the next time. But basically, we're going to link 2 Docker containers together. So we'll basically have we'll extend our Echo server just so it connects to a database as well, and we'll have that database be a MongoDB database. And that will show you how to link it, and that will be basically it for the tutorials. So we'll see you next time, and yeah, hope you enjoying it so far. Thank you very much. Hi everyone, so welcome to session 4 for creating and deploying Docker applications. So what we're going to be doing in this session is we're going to be linking applications together or containers together. So let's say you've got a container and it needs to access MongoDB that is running in another container instance. What this will do is basically allow us to connect the 2 together. Sorry, the doorbell is ringing. So let's get started with this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to use MongoDB for this and create a Mongoose instance. So let's get started. So we'll do npm I mongoose, and we'll just save this. Actually, before we do that, give me 2 seconds. So let's create a new branch for this. So we'll do get checkout b feature / we'll call this database, I think, actually. Cool. So let's install Mongoose, which is just an ODM for Mongoose. Now I'm just going to check Yep, Mongo's not running on my machine. Perfect. So what we can do instead is, let's fire this up. Let's just make a database.js file. Just add some code in here. Okay, so we're just going to start and we'll just do connect URL. I believe that's correct. Okay, so let's just double check this. I might need to quickly refer to my notes. Cool, let's just do nodemon. For those of you who don't know, nodemon is just a way of like quickly rerunning an application whenever you change a file. Okay, perfect. So URL string parser is deprecated. All right, so let's go on to mongo.connect again. We'll add the options in here. So use new URL parser. Let's just do this. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we haven't got Mongo running and we can't do it. Now what we can do here is we can just use Docker to do this. So we'll do Docker run and just attach it. Name as Mongo. Port as 27017. 27017, I think. Can't remember what the default port is for Mongo. Let me just double check it here. 27017. There we go. Okay, so we'll just download this. Again, it's going to take a little bit of time. But what we're doing is just running a Docker container that contains the MongoDB instance. Now, there are better ways to do this. This is just sort of an example way, but if you were going to do it, you'd make sure that you set your data directory somewhere more persistent. So one of the things you have to consider when using Mongo or Docker is that the data directory that you have will not be persistent, basically. So if you destroy this Docker container, or any container, if you destroy this container, you will lose everything that's stored internally. So on a database, that is actually pretty bad. So what you want to do is you want to set your data store to be outside of that Docker container, and I'll go into that in a second. But for the moment, for just testing and stuff, this is absolutely fine. You can just leave it in there, and it's kind of cleaner. You want to get rid of all of your data directory anyway, but when we set it up on the server, we'll make sure that we persist that data, and I'll show you how. But for the meantime, this works absolutely fine. Okay, so if we do docker ps, you can see this running. Let me just clear this up. Perfect. Okay, so let's restart this. And it says it's failed. Probably because we've got the incorrect. All right, perfect. So now we need to set the name. Let's do this as hello world. And there we go, we've connected. So we just do console.log connected. Okay, so we've now connected to our database. We're not going to go into too much detail about what we should do following the connection, but this is it. We are connected absolutely fine. So that's it. We're connected to our Mongo database using our Docker. Now, if you remember, if I type in Mongo, it doesn't exist here, but it exists in the Docker container. So that's awesome. So now we've got this running locally, but how do we get it running within a Docker container? So if you remember, if we do, well, let's rebuild Docker build. And we'll tag it as v2. Perfect. Now if we do Docker run, we called it Elliot Menz. Let's do Elliot Menz / hello world v2. Oops, my mistake. So we need to remove that, so let's just do docker rm hello world. And let's run that again. Okay, so we do, now it seems like it's running, okay, so we do docker logs.hello world. You'll see that we actually are not running. So even though we've got Mongo running on our container here, we have not connected to it with our hello world instance. So we need to make sure that we somehow manage that. So we need to link the two containers together. So how we're going to do that? So let's stop the first running container of hello world. And let's rm it as well. Okay, so now this is what we're going to use as something called the link. And there's going to be two steps to this one. So let's go back to our Docker run. Okay, so we're going to add a, let me just put it on this one actually, it's probably easier if I do it here. And we'll make it just slightly bigger. So Docker, I won't say that out loud. Okay, Docker run. So now we're going to link the two containers. So we're going to link, and we named it Mongo if you remember, so we're going to link Mongo with Mongo. Let's see if I can just, no, that's not going to work. Docker stop hello world. Docker rm hello world. All right, so we link Mongo with Mongo. And this basically allows us to link the Mongo container to that, and we're going to name it Mongo. So if we run that, like we did, and we do docker logs hello world again, you can see we're still not connected. So even though we've linked it, it's not connected because actually it's trying to connect to our local host, which is 127.0.0.1. And that IP is actually a loopback IP to the actual container itself. And because Mongo is not running in that container, it's running a separate container. Even though they're linked, they still can't see each other. So how do we get that to work? So what happens when we link it? And you'll see we've got the link we've linked it Mongo as Mongo, hence the colon Mongo. We could just link it as Mongo, and that will give us the same effect here. Or we could rename it to like database-Mongo, and we'll do that in this next step. What that basically does is links the two. It gives it the name to the internal container, but that name is also an alias for a host. So I'll explain what that means. So let's just rm hello world, and you can do this just to force it, so it stops it and removes it. And then we'll do docker.run, and let's add the two flags this time. So we've got the hyphen detached. Let's clear this as well. So let's do docker run -d for detached. And then we'll do, let me try and get the formatting right here. Okay, so -d for detached. Ports, we'll just do P is 3000, 3000. Then we're going to link. We'll just call it database for this one, to Mongo. Now we need to set the environment variable. Now if you remember, let's just have a look here. It's kind of difficult to see. let's open up the database. Okay, so in database we've got Mongo URL. So let's do Mongo URL equals, and it's going to be MongoDB. Instead of localhost 27017, we're going to do Mongo. Oh, sorry, database. That's what we called it. 27017 / hello world. So that should be all we need. Let's scroll up to see what else we did. So we need to set the name and then the actual thing. Okay. So the name is hello world 2. Well, we'll just call it hello world actually. And then it's going to be Elliot / hello world. And we can do latest, it's fine. Okay, so no such thing as container. So let's just fix that up. So I think it's Mongo and then database, like that. I got my namings wrong. Okay, so let's have a look at the logs. Perfect, it's worked. Now, the one issue is here is actually we can't do it later. So let's, sorry, it hasn't actually worked. Let's try that again. Docker rm. We haven't set the correct tag. So we'll do v 2.0. Okay, so let's have a look at hello world. Again, we haven't connected fine, but you'll see this time we have a slightly different error. And the error is mainly because I've entered the wrong port number. But you'll see we've actually got the host name here of 127.17.0.2. So it is resolving that host name that we've set for it. Just I accidentally put the wrong port name in, which just kind of worked out nicely because you can see what's happening underneath. Okay, so let's try that again. And we're connected. Perfect. So let's push this. Make sure we do it as v2.0. We also want to just tag it as latest as well. All right, so we're just going to push this as, we're just going to tag it as latest, sorry. Latest is kind of annoying. You should really use explicit ones, but we're going to push it anyway. All right. And this is pushing all the tags that we've got, so let's clear this. Okay, let's SSH in. And we'll have a look at this, Docker PS. And we don't need these anymore, so I'm just going to close these windows down. Okay. So you see we've got this running here. We've got it running at 8080. Now, first thing we want to do is we're just going to pull Mongo down. So we're just going to pull it down. It's going to be nice and quick because we're working in a server instance. Now this time we're going to run Docker, so because we're not running in a testing environment, which we can remove later, we're going to run it this time with a custom data directory so that we can store our data elsewhere. So how do we do this? All right, so we're going to do Docker run, as usual. We'll add the name as Mongo. So now this one we're going to use the vflag flag. So the vflag is a volume flag. So it basically allows you to set volumes up somewhere. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do /home/Elliot /database, I guess, is probably a good one. And we'll set that as data-db, which is the database directory needed for MongoDB. If you're using your own custom app, I recommend just checking what you need. We'll detach it as usual, but we're not going to open up 27017 anymore, like we did on the last one. So we're just going to leave it like this. We'll call it Mongo. Okay, so we do Docker PS. We've got Mongo running just fine. And if we do ls, you can see we've got the database stored there. So we do ls database. You can see basically everything that is stored and created in there. So that is the data directory for MongoDB. So now if we docker stop MongoDB, docker.stop Mongo, docker rm Mongo, we've still got the database directory there, even though we no longer have Mongo running. So let's also stop hello world, and we'll rm hello world as well. And we have nothing. Docker, yes. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to run Mongo again. Just rerun that command. And we'll run hello world 2, or hello world as we'll call it. This time we're just going to link it as Mongo and Mongo. And then we'll do D for detached. And then we'll set the end of Mongo URL equals MongoDB Mongo 27017. Hello world. So that should be enough. And we'll do the port of 80 to 3000 again. And so this will just put it down. If we do docker ps, yep, docker logs hello world, connected, and then finally, there we go. We're all good. So everything's running nicely. We've managed to link Docker with, well, we'll link the two Docker containers up and running. If we do docker logs Mongo, you can see that we've actually received a connection from Node.js version 3.1.4 down at the bottom there. So everything is working nicely. There's plenty more you can do with this sort of stuff, but this is very much a brief overview on how to get running and get things set up, and just deploy your applications online. There's plenty of other resources I recommend taking up from here, looking at things like Kubernetes or automated deployment and container management systems. Amazon AWS also has a really great use of that. But yeah, I hope this series was informative, and I hope it sort of gave an indication of how to do things, within further projects that you see on Live EDU. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. I hope this clarified things for you. See you all in the next course.